There was a moment, quiet, almost invisible, where I told myself I was okay without you. I tried to move on. I tried to fill the silence with new faces, new conversations, new distractions. I smiled when I was supposed to smile, I laughed when it was expected, and I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, you were replaceable. But love, real love, doesn't disappear just because we ask it to. It lingers in the spaces between thoughts. It whispers in the middle of the night. It shows up in the smallest things, the songs, the memories, the way the world feels a little less alive without you in it. And that's when it hit me. Not all connections are meant to be replaced. Some people, they don't just touch your life, they become a part of who you are. So today, I'm not standing here as someone who forgot you. I'm standing here as someone who finally understands the truth. I never lost you. I just tried to run away from what you meant to me. I thought I could replace you. Not because you were easy to forget, but because I was afraid of how impossible you were to hold on to. At first, it felt like the right thing to do. Everyone says time heals, right? Everyone says you meet new people, you build new memories, and slowly, the old ones fade away. So I tried, I really did. I stepped into rooms I didn't belong in. I held conversations that felt empty. I looked into eyes that were kind. But not yours. And I kept telling myself, this is how it works. This is how you move on. You replace what you lost, piece by piece, until it doesn't hurt anymore. But something inside me never agreed with that. Because no matter how hard I tried, every smile I gave felt borrowed. Every laugh echoed with something missing. Every connection, no matter how warm, felt like it stopped just short of reaching my soul. And I started to notice something I couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't that the world didn't have beautiful people in it. It wasn't that others didn't care, didn't try, didn't give. It was that none of them were you, and I don't mean that in a superficial way. I do mean your face or your voice, or the way you walked into a room. I mean the way you understood me, without me having to explain. The way silence between us never felt awkward, it felt safe. The way you didn't just hear my words, you felt them. That kind of connection, it doesn't come around often. And when it does, it changes you, so I kept searching. Thinking maybe I just hadn't found the right replacement yet. Maybe somewhere out there was someone who could fill the space you left behind. But the truth is, I wasn't searching for someone new. I was searching for you in different forms, in different faces, in different moments. And every time I realized it wasn't you, something inside me quietly broke again. Do you know what it feels like to sit across from someone who's trying their best to know you? And all you can think about is how you never had to try this hard with someone else. Do you know what it's like to be in a room full of people and still feel alone, because the one person who made everything feel complete isn't there? I kept pretending I was okay. I kept pretending I was moving forward. But deep down, I was standing still, stuck in the echo of what we had. And then one night it got quiet. No distractions, no voices, no pretending. Just me and the truth I had been avoiding. I never wanted to replace you. I just didn't know how to live with the space you left behind. Because loving you, it wasn't something temporary. It wasn't something I could switch off, or rewrite, or substitute. It became a part of me, and when you lose something that has become a part of you, you don't replace it. You learn to live differently. I realized that what we had wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real things, they don't just disappear. They stay with you in ways you don't expect. In the way you think, in the way you feel, in the way you see the world. I tried to convince myself that moving on meant forgetting you. But the truth is, moving on isn't about erasing someone. It's about understanding what they meant to you. And accepting that some people will always hold a piece of your heart, no matter where life takes you. And you hold more than a piece. You taught me what it means to feel deeply. You showed me that connection isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about being seen, being understood, being accepted in a way that feels effortless. And once you experience that, you don't look for replacements anymore. Because you realize love isn't something you trade, it's something you carry. I started to see things differently after that. The world didn't feel empty anymore, but it felt honest. I stopped chasing the idea of someone else being you. I stopped forcing connections that didn't naturally exist. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel what I had been running from. The truth, you were never replaceable, not because you were perfect, but because what we had was ours. Unique, unrepeatable, real in a way that doesn't come twice. And maybe that's what makes it so hard, because when you lose something like that, you don't just lose a person. You lose a version of yourself that only existed with them. I missed who I was with you. I missed how easy it felt to just be, no masks. No second guessing, no fear of being misunderstood, just connection. And I kept trying to recreate that feeling, without realizing it wasn't the feeling that could be recreated. It was the person, and people, real, genuine, once-in-a-lifetime people. They aren't replaceable. So I stopped trying, not because I gave up on love, but because I finally understood it. Love isn't about finding someone to fill a void. It's not about replacing what you lost with something similar. It's about recognizing what was real, and honoring it even when it's gone. And in that realization, something changed. The pain didn't disappear, but it softened, because it was no longer about loss. It was about meaning. You meant something real to me, something that shaped me, something that stayed. And instead of running from that, I finally allowed myself to accept it. I don't look for you in other people anymore. I don't compare, I don't chase, I don't force. Because now I know. What we had was never meant to be replaced. It was meant to be felt, remembered, and understood in its own quiet, permanent way. I didn't lose you. That's what I keep telling myself now, even though there was a time when it felt like everything in me had shattered the moment you were gone. Because losing you would mean you disappeared. It would mean that what we had just faded into nothing. It would mean that all those moments, all those quiet conversations, all those feelings that once felt so real meant less than I thought they did. But that's not the truth. The truth is you're still here. Not in the way I once held you, not in the way I could hear your voice or see your smile, but in something deeper, something that doesn't just vanish because circumstances changed. You stayed in the way I think, in the way I pause before I speak, remembering how you used to understand even the things I couldn't say out loud. In the way I notice small details, because you taught me that the smallest things often carry the biggest meaning. I didn't lose you. I just had to learn how to live without your presence, while still carrying your impact. And that took time. At first I fought it. I tried to convince myself that the only way to move forward was to erase you. To forget your laugh, to ignore the memories, to pretend that you were just another chapter that had ended. But the more I tried to forget, the more I realized you weren't something I could simply delete. Because you weren't just a person I met, you were a feeling I experienced. You were a connection that changed me in ways I didn't even understand at the time. And how do you replace something like that? You don't. You can meet new people. You can build new memories. You can even find happiness again in ways that are real and meaningful. But that doesn't mean you replace what once existed. Because some people, they don't take up space in your life temporarily. They carve something permanent into your soul, and you were one of those people. I remember the way everything felt so natural with you. There was no forcing, no pretending, no trying to be someone I wasn't just to be accepted. You saw me, not the version I showed the world, but the version I didn't even know how to explain. And you stayed. That kind of presence, it's rare. It's not something you stumble upon every day. It's not something you can recreate just because you want to. And for a long time, I didn't understand that. I thought love was something you could rebuild quickly, something you could replace if it didn't work out. But loving you taught me something different. It taught me that some connections are once in a lifetime. Not because they're perfect, but because they're real in a way that leaves a mark. And marks, they don't disappear. They become a part of your story. There were nights when I tried to convince myself that I had moved on, that I was okay, that I didn't think about you anymore. But then something small would happen. A song, a familiar place, a random thought in the middle of a quiet moment. And suddenly, there you were again. Not in a way that hurt like before, but in a way that reminded me you mattered. And that's when I started to understand something I had been resisting for so long. Remembering you doesn't mean I'm stuck. It doesn't mean I haven't grown or that I can't move forward. It means I experienced something real, and real things, they deserve to be remembered, not replaced. Because replacing you would mean trying to find someone who could be exactly what you were to me. And that's not fair, not to them and not to what we had. What we had was ours. It belonged to a specific moment in time, to a specific version of us, to something that can't be copied or recreated. And once I accepted that, everything changed. I stopped comparing people to you. I stopped expecting others to fill the same space, to understand me in the exact same way, to make me feel what you once did. Instead, I started to appreciate what is, without trying to turn it into what was. Because moving forward doesn't mean replacing the past. It means carrying it with understanding. It means recognizing that every person who enters your life brings something different, something unique, something that isn't meant to be measured against anyone else. And you taught me that. You showed me what it feels like to be truly connected to someone. You showed me that love isn't about perfection. It's about presence, honesty, and the quiet comfort of simply being understood. And even though you're not here anymore, that lesson stayed. It shaped the way I see people now. It shaped the way I value connection, the way I listen, the way I love. So no, I didn't lose you. Losing you would mean I gained nothing from knowing you. It would mean that your presence in my life left no trace, but that's not true. You changed me, in ways I'm still discovering, in ways I still carry, in ways that continue to influence who I am becoming. And maybe that's what love really is. Not just holding on to someone while they're there, but allowing their presence to leave something meaningful behind, even when they're gone. I used to think the goal was to forget, to move on so completely that it felt like the past never existed. But now I understand. Forgetting isn't growth, understanding is. Accepting that someone mattered. Accepting that they were important. Accepting that they played a role in shaping your life. That's what allows you to move forward without losing yourself. And that's what I've finally learned. You weren't meant to be replaced. You were meant to be remembered, not in a way that holds me back, but in a way that reminds me of what's possible, of what's real, of what love can feel like when it's genuine. And now, when I think of you, it's not with the same heaviness, not with the same ache that once consumed me. It's quieter now, softer, like a memory that doesn't demand anything but still means everything. And in that quiet, I've found something I didn't expect, peace. There was a time when I believed love was something you could control. Something you could start when you wanted and stop when it hurt too much. I believed that if something ended, it meant it wasn't strong enough. That if someone left, it meant they weren't meant to stay. But you changed that belief without even trying. Because what I felt with you, it didn't follow rules, it didn't ask for permission. It didn't fade just because life decided to take us in different directions. And that's where everything became complicated. Because how do you let go of something that still feels alive inside you? I tried to be logical about it. I told myself that life moves on, that people come and go, that this is just how things work. And maybe in some ways that's true, but what I didn't understand back then was that not every connection is temporary. Some people, they don't just pass through your life. They stay in ways you don't see at first. They stay in your habits, in your thoughts, in the way your heart reacts to things long after they're gone. And you stayed, even when I tried to convince myself you didn't. There were moments when I felt strong, when I thought I had finally moved past everything. I would go days, sometimes weeks, without thinking about you. And then suddenly, without warning, something would remind me. Not always something big. Sometimes it was just a quiet moment, a familiar feeling, a certain kind of silence. And in that silence, I realized something I had been avoiding. You weren't gone. You had just become a part of me, and that realization, it changes everything. Because when someone becomes a part of you, you do get over them. You grow around them. You learn how to carry what they gave you, without letting it weigh you down. At least that's what I'm learning now, because before I thought strength meant forgetting. I thought moving forward meant leaving everything behind, including you. But now I see it differently. Strength is being able to remember and still move forward. It's being able to look back at what you had and not feel broken but grateful. And that took time. There were days when the memories felt heavy, when thinking about you felt like reopening something that hadn't fully healed. But healing isn't about erasing scars. It's about understanding them. It's about recognizing that they exist because something mattered, and you mattered. More than I admitted at the time, more than I allowed myself to fully accept. Because loving you, it wasn't simple. It was deep. It was real. It was the kind of love that doesn't just stay on the surface. It reaches into places you didn't even know existed. And when something like that ends, it doesn't leave quietly. It leaves questions. It leaves emotions. It leaves a version of you that has to figure out how to exist without something that once felt essential. I struggled with that. I struggled with the idea that something so meaningful could become something I could only remember. It didn't feel fair, it didn't feel right. But life doesn't always follow what feels fair. Sometimes it just teaches, and what you taught me, I carry with me every day. You taught me that love isn't about possession. It's not about holding on to someone no matter what. It's about connection. It's about understanding. It's about those quiet, unspoken moments that make you feel less alone in this world. And even though we don't share those moments anymore, the impact of them never left. I see it now in the way I care about people, in the way I listen more closely, feel more deeply, appreciate things I once overlooked. You changed the way I experience love, and maybe that was always the point. Not to stay forever, but to leave something meaningful behind. I used to think that meant something was incomplete, that if it didn't last, it somehow failed, but now I understand. Not all love stories are meant to last forever. Some are meant to transform you, some are meant to show you what's possible, so that you never settle for anything less again. And that doesn't make them any less important. If anything, it makes them unforgettable. So no, I don't see you as someone I lost anymore. I see you as someone who became a part of my journey, a part of my growth, a part of my understanding of what it truly means to feel something real. And because of that, I don't need to replace you. I don't need to recreate what we had. Because what we had already did what it was meant to do. It changed me. It taught me. It stayed with me in a way that doesn't need your presence to exist. And now, when I think of you, I don't feel the same confusion, the same resistance, the same need to figure everything out. I just feel clarity. You were never just a moment in my life. You were a turning point. A quiet, powerful shift that helped me understand love, not as something temporary, but as something that leaves a lasting imprint, even when the person is no longer there.